My parents trained me from childhood to burn multinational company trucks. They called it active faith. I don't know how to start this story without sounding like a monster, but if you ask me what my first real memory was, it was the smell of gasoline. I was 7 years old, sitting in the back seat of a rusty pickup truck with a jerry can between my legs and a rope wrapped around my hand. My mother smiled at me from the front passenger seat while my father hummed a religious hymn and drove in the dark toward a food transport truck with the logo of a huge, colorful multinational. God hates the oppressor's son, he said. This is active faith. I didn't understand it then. I didn't understand why God would want us to burn things. But my world had no room for questions. At home, there was no television, no internet, no friendships outside the underground church on Uncle Samuel's farm. Everything was full of sermons, training, and phrases like, "The rich feed on our slavery," or "Fire purifies what money corrupts." My father was a tall, imposing man with a voice that made other believers tremble. They followed him, obeyed him. My mother was quieter, but lethal in her devotion. She taught me how to mix fuels without leaving traces, how to hide underground during raid drills, how to extinguish my fear as if it were a candle. She would hug me afterward and tell me God had chosen me. By the time I was 9, I could make a Molotov cocktail without supervision. By 10, I was participating in the fires, hooded, running through dark fields with my backpack full of gasoline. Always trucks from specific companies. Never people. Always a prayer before each mission. Let the unjust burn. Let the pure be reborn. But I began to doubt when I saw a driver cry. It was on a humid night in March. It had rained, and the mud covered our boots. The truck belonged to a cosmetics company. We had chosen a lonely spot on the road. Dad blocked the way with our pickup. Mom pointed a starter pistol, and I was in charge of opening the gas tanks. But the driver didn't run, didn't curse, didn't beg. He just got out, placed his phone on the ground, raised his hands, and broke into tears. "I have kids," he said. "I haven't done anything wrong." That night, my hands trembled. I spilled gasoline on my shoes. Mom pushed me. "Do it now." And I did. But the fire didn't warm me. It only left me cold. That was the first night I couldn't sleep. Over time, my role within the group became more important. I was an exemplary son. Smart, fussed, committed. When I turned 15, they gave me my first solo mission. Dad hugged me tightly. "Today you become a man of faith. Today heaven recognizes you as a warrior." It was a supermarket from a famous chain. I had to sneak in at night and set fire to the storage area. They gave me keys, maps, and the surveillance schedule. Everything was calculated, but I made the worst possible mistake. I looked at the faces. I saw the cleaning lady leave later than usual. A young man had fallen asleep during his break, and I couldn't do it. I sat on the edge of a planter, fuse in hand, and cried like I hadn't cried in years. I knew that if I didn't do it, I couldn't go back. But if I did, they might die. I left. I ran through the city like a ghost. I didn't go back home. I hid in a youth shelter. Changed my name. Worked washing dishes, sweeping streets. But always paranoid that someone would recognize me. Almost 3 years passed before they found me. I don't know how they did it. I don't know if it was a photo, a rumor, or my own carelessness. But one night, as I was closing the cafe where I worked, I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder. I turned and saw my mother. Thinner, older, with eyes burning with something that wasn't love. "Faith is not abandoned, son. Faith is purified by fire." That's when it all started again. But different, because now I knew they weren't going to let me go so easily. I didn't sleep that night. When my mother found me in the back of the cafe, she didn't yell or cry. She looked at me with that calm only blind conviction gives and said, "There's a bonfire waiting for you. Heaven also needs kindling." I tried to run, but it was too late. 2 men were with her, brothers in faith, she said. One grabbed my arm. The other covered my head with a coarse cloth that smelled of old smoke. I woke up tied to a chair in a cabin I recognized immediately. It was Uncle Samuel's old farm, now abandoned. Or so I thought. The walls were covered in black crosses and Bible verses crossed out with red paint. In the back, a wooden table with rusty tools and half-burnt photographs. Trucks, stores, faces of important people in multinational companies. My father didn't appear until dawn. He wore black, his beard longer, his eyes darker. He looked at me as if analyzing a broken piece. "I didn't bring you here to punish you, son. I brought you to rebuild you." There were days of isolation. Days of silence, interrupted only by religious hymns from an old portable radio. Days of fasting. My body weakened, but my mind was total chaos. I had nightmares while awake. I saw fire where there was none, heard the driver's cries, the crackle of burning flesh that never existed. I began to fear my own thoughts more than I feared them. One night, my mother came in with an old notebook. "It's your training diary," she said. "It's time to remember who you are." I flipped through it with trembling hands. There was my training notes, my childhood drawings of burning trucks, phrases I had repeated hundreds of times like mantras. I felt watched by my own past, trapped in a reflection I no longer recognized. But the real terror began when they took me to the basement. There were others, young people like me, some even younger, all children of fire, all re-educated. They hugged me fervently, told me they had missed me, that they prayed for me. But their eyes were empty. No doubt, no fear, only hollow devotion. One of them, Simone, said to me, "Dad cried for you. But not because you left, because he almost lost you forever." That's when the reintegration began. During the day, we worked on the farm, digging trenches, setting up makeshift antennas, memorizing speeches. At night, they projected videos, images of wars, extreme poverty, natural disasters, while talking about divine judgment and our role in purification. If anyone asked questions, the punishment was isolation. 24 hours locked in a closet without light, without food, listening to audio of screams and fire. I pretended to be convinced, pretended to say the prayers with faith, pretended to plan new attacks. But inside, every day, I was more destroyed. I started writing with my nails on my room's walls phrases like, "This is not God," or "They don't think, they repeat." Simone found out. One night, he showed me the clean wall. "Your phrases are gone," he said. "Not because we cleaned them, but because they're not yours anymore." My mother asked me to prepare a new mission. We had to burn a food convoy supplying a chain of private schools. "They eat while others die," she said. Everything was planned: map, schedule, names. I was in charge of 3 youths, all between 14 and 17. I was the oldest, the guide, the shepherd of fire. That night we set out. We rode in an old pickup truck. No one spoke, only prayed. I looked at them and felt nauseous. I wanted to scream at them to get out, to run, but I couldn't. My mother had told me that morning, with a calm voice, "If you fail this time, don't come back. Not because we don't love you, but because this time we'll know you're not one of us." We stationed near the rural road, waited for the convoy. I had the detonator. The others prepared the jerry cans. I saw the caravan appear over the hill, lit by yellow headlights. It was time. It was the moment. My hands trembled, and then I saw something that completely broke me. A stuffed animal hanging from the rearview mirror of the first truck. The same stuffed animal my mother gave me when I was 5 years old. The same, or an identical one. A plush lion with one drooping ear. An insignificance, but it was enough. I dropped the detonator, turned to the boys, yelled at them to run. They didn't understand. I yelled again. One obeyed. Another tried to stop me. The third threw the first Molotov. The fire spread like the sky had opened. I screamed, tried to put it out with dirt. I couldn't. The first truck exploded. The second stopped. People ran, screaming. I heard a cry. I heard my name, but it wasn't one of mine. It was the voice of someone begging me to save myself. I didn't know who. I ran like that other time. Faster, without looking back. I slept in the forest, covered in leaves. Cried until I dry heaved. Vomited dirt. I had nowhere to go. I only knew one thing. I had crossed a line. This time they wouldn't forgive me. This time they were going to hunt me. And what terrified me the most is that I knew them too well to doubt it. The first hours after the escape were pure adrenaline. I hid among coffee plantations and abandoned chicken coops. The smell of smoke still clung to my clothes. I had no food, no phone, not even a name to give if someone found me. I couldn't trust anyone, not after what I'd done. On the third night, I broke into a house to steal bread. I left money. I don't know why. Maybe one last attempt to convince myself I still had a soul. I walked until I found an old shed. I slept there, trembling, thinking about what I had done and what was coming next. It didn't take them long to find me. It was at dawn. I opened my eyes because I felt something, not a sound, a presence. And there they were, 2 figures in the shadows, motionless, like statues waiting for me to move. I recognized one of the faces. Simone, the boy who showed me the clean wall. "We're taking care of you," he said. There was no fight. I stood up, lowered my gaze. I surrendered. Again, they took me to a different place. No longer the farm. It was a kind of underground warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Bare concrete, smell of gasoline and dried urine. This time, it wasn't reintegration. It was punishment. There I met Jacob. He was 12, with burn scars on his arms. He told me he had failed a mission, thrown a device too early. His punishment was watching his house burn with his sister inside. They said it was an accident, but no one believed it. Not even him. We talked at night. He told me he sometimes dreamed of God coming down from the sky to extinguish the fires. But he always woke up just as the water touched the ground. I don't think we deserve the water, he told me. Days passed. They made us watch videos of our own missions. Edited clips with heavenly music and speeches from our parents. I saw myself leading others, raising torches, celebrating when corporate logos burned. I saw myself smiling. I felt sick. One day, Jacob didn't wake up. They say he hit his head. I don't believe that. I heard a whisper that night. The sound of a struggle. A faint moan. Like someone begging for forgiveness while sinking into a bottomless pit. After that, I changed. Something inside me broke and never mended. I stopped pretending. I started speaking, questioning, answering back. And that was worse. They tied me to a chair for 3 days. They made me repeat a phrase. Faith is tested in fire. Over and over. If I stopped, they doused me with ice water. Or beat me with a wooden rod that had my name carved into it. My mother came on the 4th day. She hugged me, kissed my forehead, whispered, "We're doing this for you, son, so you can shine again." And then I understood. To them, I was a burnt-out torch, a broken tool. And when a tool no longer works, it gets discarded. I pretended to be weak, pretended to give in, and I waited. Weeks later, they gave me another chance. One last act of faith, an internal purge. There is one among us who no longer believes, they said. And you, like the resurrected, must carry out the judgment. They gave me a knife, took me to an empty room, and there, sitting across from me, was him, Simone. "It's a test," he said. "I know," I replied. And then I did what no one expected. I stabbed the knife into my own foot, severing an artery. I screamed, collapsed. Simone ran to me, desperate. Before losing consciousness, I whispered to him, "Run. Run now." I woke up in an improvised hospital. There was confusion. Whispers. One of the doctors was a civilian. He asked me, "Are you with him out of choice or out of fear?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him, with enough truth in my eyes for him to understand. That same night, the generator failed mysteriously. A total blackout. In the chaos, someone untied me, gave me clean clothes, led me to an old motorcycle. It was Simone. "Now you run," he said. "I'll distract Mom." And I did. I ran, for the second time, with a bleeding leg, a broken soul, but this time with a spark of hope. Because if Simone had also awakened, then maybe we weren't alone. Maybe we could still put out the fire. The motorcycle didn't last long. I made it to a small village, where a woman with a sun-worn face let me sleep in her stable in exchange for helping with some chores. She didn't ask my name. Maybe she guessed it. Maybe she had seen too many broken boys like me. In that remote corner of the country with no signal or law, I breathed for the first time in years. The fear was still there, but it was different now. It was mixed with guilt and something I didn't understand, compassion, maybe? Redemption? Every night, I wrote in a notebook I found in an old shop. I drew fire symbols crossed out. I wrote the names of the boys who were with me on the last mission. Jacob, Simone, the little one who obeyed and ran. I didn't know their last names, but I remembered their voices. Those names were now my personal gospel. But peace was fleeting. One afternoon, while helping carry firewood, I heard a familiar sound, a drone. Then another. The woman ran out and yelled for me to flee. Someone had found them. Probably not my parents directly, but allies. Similar cults. Fraternities that wore different masks but preached the same doctrine. I ran through coffee fields, hid in a muddy ditch with snakes and bugs. I thought about letting myself be caught, but I remember Jacob. Not for him, for his sister, the one who died while he watched. I forced myself to move, to walk, to crawl, to eat roots if needed. I got as far away as I could. I had no destination, only one goal, to live long enough to tell the world what we were. And then I found it, an abandoned church, stone old, with shattered stained glass and cobwebs on the altar. That's where I took refuge. There was a burned Bible, many pages missing, but the ones left spoke of Judas's betrayal and Peter's denial. And I, who had been both, cried myself to sleep. Weeks passed. I managed to contact a dissident group, former members of extremist cults. People like me. They used secret forums, graffiti signals, old libraries. One of them, a woman named Lena, recognized me the moment we met. "Your story reached us. We knew someone else had to be escaping. Simone is alive. They're looking for him too." Then I knew this wasn't the end. It was the start of a war. We took shelter in a network of ancient tunnels. Lena taught me how to hide my face. We changed our names. I was now Abel. She was Ruth. Together, we started planning how to rescue others, how to leak information, how to ignite a new kind of fire, one that didn't destroy, but illuminated the darkness. But the cult wasn't asleep. On a social media page they used for evangelizing, a blurry image appeared of someone hooded. But I recognized him. It was my father, speaking to a new generation of children. He said, "Faith is tested in fire, but also in ash. The traitor will return, and we will purify him." And then Ruth received a letter, a note in her bag, placed without anyone noticing. It said, "Simone is not hiding. They have him. He's at the training farm, awaiting his judgment." We wanted to act immediately. But it wasn't that simple. There were codes, surveillance, double agents. A single misstep, and it would all be over. One night, while going over maps, Ruth took my hand and said, "We can't save everyone. But if we save one, if we save Simone, then we win." That night, I dreamed of fire again. But it didn't destroy. It was a ring of embers. In the center was Simone, his eyes crying but steady. And behind him, someone else. A female figure. It wasn't my mother. It couldn't be. She had the same face, but no shadow. I woke up drenched in sweat. The clock read 3:33. Ruth wasn't in her bunk. I found a note. I went for him. "Don't wait for me." The world crashed down on me. I ran through the tunnels, searching through echoes and shadows. No sign of her. I only found her pendant, a small piece of red glass, shaped like a flame. And then I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to run anymore. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to write diaries. This time, I was going back into hell. But this time, I would light the fuse from within. I waited 2 days. Checked all contact points, the agreed signals. Nothing. Ruth didn't appear. The group began to fracture. Some wanted to flee, others wanted revenge. I just wanted to find her. I infiltrated the outskirts of the farm. I was no longer a boy. I knew how to move, how to listen, how to read the language of the guards. I disguised myself as a pilgrim, arrived on foot with bleeding feet, asking for comfort. They gave me bread and water. I slept among them, listened to their conversations. On the 3rd day, I heard what I feared. Today, they bring the woman, the one who let us sell. She's marked. They'll judge her on Sunday. I waited, endured. But when I saw them bring her in an old truck, hooded and handcuffed, I knew. It was Ruth. I didn't look at her. I didn't act. I just walked away, heart in my throat. That night, I burned my false name. I was no longer able. I was no one. I was a witness. 2 days later, they held the assembly. The children sat in rows, with old Bibles. My father spoke like before. He mentioned Ruth, called her a traitor daughter, made her kneel before the fire. But they didn't kill her. They didn't want martyrs. They wanted symbols. They left her there, kneeling, for hours, days. She didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't sleep. The last night I approached, pretending to be a caretaker. She barely raised her head. Her lips trembled. She only said one sentence, "Don't let this start again." And she fainted. That dawn, I lit a small fire far from the camp. Used leaves, cooking grease, and stolen papers. Left old clothes and a handwritten note. Made it look like a failed escape. A body burned. A punishment by fire. And while everyone ran toward the ashes, I carried Ruth in silence. Through the forest. Through the mud. Where drones couldn't fly. I never looked back. Today, Ruth is in a hospital. She doesn't remember much. But she's alive. I'm writing this from an internet cafe. I'll move again. Maybe to another country. But before I go, I want to leave this here, somewhere in the digital world. Because if someone is looking for me, if someone still thinks active faith is just a tale told by fanatics, I want them to know it's not. It's real, and it's still alive, somewhere. Ruth survived, yes, but she came back broken. The Ruth I knew, with firm hands and a steel voice, could barely hold a cup without trembling. She had nightmares, stuttered when she spoke, and sometimes locked herself away for hours, clutching the glass flame she still wore around her neck. Her body was free, but her soul was still in the farm. The hospital that took her in down south was discreet, almost clandestine. They handled cases of women victims of cults, violent religious networks, spiritual exploitation. There were no cameras, no formal records, just armored doors, false names, and volunteers who knew too much about hell. I went every day, but I didn't go in. I stayed in the cafeteria, reading old newspapers, eavesdropping on monitors. Some days, I fell asleep in a plastic chair, until a nurse recognized me. "You're the one who brought the girl with the red flame, right?" I nodded. He said nothing else. He just handed me a card with a number written by hand. "They're going to need you. More than you think." The number belonged to someone named Octavio. A voice with a neutral accent, as if he had stripped away the language to leave no trace. "You're on a list. Not of enemies yet, but they're watching you. We want to help you disappear completely. But first, there's something you should see." We arranged to meet in a park on the outskirts of Pasta. The wind smelled of wet earth and rotting leaves. Octavio was an older man, with the empty eyes of someone who's seen too much. He handed me an offline tablet with a folder full of videos. In one, I recognized the uniform from the farm. Younger kids, some crying, others in a trance. They repeated new phrases. Not about fire. Now they spoke of seeds, of planting roots in the corrupt systems of the modern world. The doctrine had mutated. They no longer burned. Now they planted. They infiltrated. In schools, churches, social enterprises. The active faith had changed its mask. In another video, someone was speaking in a foreign language. German, I think, but he used symbols similar to the ones I used to draw as a child. Flame cross, inverted eye, the number 7 surrounded by arrows. It was global. Octavio looked at me. It's not just your father. It's a network. Old, with many heads. You touched one, but there are more. My hand was shaking. I asked him why he was showing me all this. His answer was simple, because you're one of the few who can infiltrate again, without being recognized. I refused. At first, I wanted to take Ruth and disappear. Go to Bolivia or a remote island. But she woke up one day and looked at me with eyes that were no longer just hers. You have to go back. Not for revenge. So they don't repeat it. I agreed. Weeks went by. I received training, languages, counter-surveillance, resistance to interrogation. They taught me to erase digital footprints, to encrypt messages using children's book texts. They changed my accent. They tattooed a fake mark on me, an open circle, the symbol of one of the dissident groups the cult hadn't infiltrated yet. And then I went back. I posed as a young entrepreneur. I went to an open talk on alternative spirituality in Medellin. I mingled with young people searching for purpose. Soon they invited me to a private community. They used code names. By the third meeting, I recognized the cadence of the prayers, the tone, the hidden message. It was them, and they didn't know, but I was too. Now I write from a farm on the outskirts, where I've been assigned logistics duties. I'm just another apprentice, invisible among their ranks. I'm recording everything, sending fragments to Octavio. I haven't seen my father, but I know he's close. His doctrine is in the walls. His voice in the leaders who indoctrinate with smiles. And then, this morning, a new boy arrived. Green eyes, pale. He looked at me like he knew me. And when no one was watching, he handed me a drawing. It was a man on fire. But he wasn't screaming. He was smiling. Below, written in pencil, "My dad says you're going to be flamed too." And I knew this wasn't over. It wasn't the end. It was the seed of something worse. And I'm here to rip it out at the root.